Hi, everyone. I'm Philip Rothman with Scoring Notes and the Scoring Notes website and podcast. I'm here at the NAMM 2024 show, and it's been a real great time talking with all of our friends and colleagues in the industry of music notation and related technology. I'm here once again with Jason Wick from MakeMusic. Jason, it has been 4 years since you and I got together at NAMM. I know we've seen each other in the interim, but first of all, I just want to say how great it is to see you back in context at the NAMM show and seeing Make Music thrive and flourishing, and to see everything that you've been doing. So good to see you.
Likewise, great to see you. Thanks for inviting me. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. So, you and I spoke 4 years ago at NAMM show, and for those that don't know Jason already, I know we talked a little bit about your background and how you came to be in this position. So we will reference our listeners and readers to that article, but I want to start actually with NAMM itself, because this is the first time in 4 years that we've been back to the full experience, four-day show in January at the Anaheim Convention Center. And it really kind of struck me that NAMM is really at the intersection of what Make Music does. NAMM's mission, and I'm quoting here, is to strengthen the music products industry and promote the pleasures and benefits of making music. So Make Music is actually in the mission statement of NAMM. So how important is it to be here?
Yeah, it's very important. And we've been here actually all the years that NAMM has continued to go on in some form.
Oh, really?
So we were here in 2023 and 2022 as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, it feels a little bit more like it used to back then.
Yep, it does.
It's very important because for those who don't know out there, we are a combination of the Make Music products you might know, such as Finale, Smart Music, which is now called MakeMusic Cloud, the Garriton Instruments, and Alfred Publishing. And so when you put all of that together, you have people who create the music, you have people who prepare the music, people who are teaching the music at early ages, right? People who are ultimately playing the music. And we are involved in all of those parts of the process, which I think you've laid it out perfectly.
Yeah, it's true. We see all those people here, and we see people from all ranges of levels, of professional levels to amateur levels, everything in between, or people that maybe do other things, and maybe music notation or music education isn't their primary thing, but it's their secondary or tertiary thing, or vice versa. And everything's in play here at NAMM, and it's really fascinating to see the interaction between people, the serendipitous interaction that you can really only get from seeing somebody literally across the room and say, "Hey, come here and let's talk, and let me show you this, and let's go and browse the floor." So that's really cool. But you actually mentioned Make Music Cloud, which used to be Smart Music, and the Alfred catalog. Can you tell us a little bit more about that relationship?
Yeah, sure. So Alfred Publishing is our part of our company, and it is the largest music education publisher in the world. And a lot of that music is inside of our online digital catalog, either in PDF format or in interactive format. And as far as some of the offerings that maybe some of the Scoring Notes listeners and readers aren't as familiar with, right? We have this online digital catalog where musicians or students can play along, practice, get immediate feedback on music from that online catalog. And so that's really one of the main relationships where you see the overlap in those two different pieces.
Yeah, and that catalog really has a wide variety of interactive titles, mm-hmm. where somebody could buy the music, and they could buy it in what we would still consider like the traditional print music
certainly.
Format as well. But that music also exists in the interactive format online. So I think for a lot of people that maybe we will talk a little bit about Finale too.
Certainly, I hope so.
Of course, yeah, because that's obviously we've covered a lot here. But I want to actually start with some of the things that maybe our Scoring Notes audience might be less familiar with. And you mentioned some of those things, but there's a practice tool that you have, and that enables performers to play along with those solo and ensemble parts. There's built-in accompaniment. There's a tuner and a metronome. There's a sight reading studio. You showed me when we were
Right.
talking over the summer a little bit more, where you can basically generate an on-the-fly piece of music based on parameters that you put in, and that's really cool because, as we know, once you sight read a piece of music once, you're never sight reading that particular piece of music again.
Yes.
So it's always a challenge to actually, get a constant stream of music to practice those sight reading chops. So that's really cool. There's Compose, which is basically kind of like an online. Maybe you would characterize it differently, but I do think of it as kind of like an online version, light version of Finale.
Sure.
And it's and that's the creation piece. So, what else? That's kind of my understanding on my end. How would you characterize those different tools, and what else is there in the suite?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is even though you're focusing on the MakeMusic Cloud pieces of that, even Finale as the desktop application in version 27, the current version, one of the biggest features we've invested in is this sharing functionality, right? Which connects to MakeMusic Cloud as well.
Yep.
So when you think about a content library a lot of that's coming from Alfred, and Finale being able to take user-generated content, push that into the cloud, they all do talk together.
Right.
But when you talk about MakeMusic Cloud specifically, you've really hit a lot of the main points. But really, when we're thinking about it, we're talking about an expansive catalog so that you can find engaging pieces of music to practice along with. But you have all these different, that's what I love about this industry too, right? You have all the different personas. Based on whatever your vantage point is, you're thinking about different things, you're focused on different things, and ours is to try to reach each of those people in their journey and give them value for what they're doing with where they're at, right?
Right.
So if you're creating music and you want to do something kind of quick, or maybe you're a teacher doing something for your students, you can use Compose, and it's entirely free, right? By the way, you just go to Make Music, create an account, and you can use MakeMusic's Compose product for no charge. You can save that music in the cloud, you can export it to Music XML, use it in Finale, whatever you want, it's there for you. And then you can take that music, that content, and you can put it into the platform to give to, if you have students or other musicians you want to share it with. It's all available there for you. I will say the one that is the most exciting to me that you brought up is the sight reading piece. And that's because it approaches that level of complexity that we're talking like about Finale, where generating music automatically based on parameters. I want something that is in 3/4 or 4/4 or both, with these options of tempos and these expressions. You have this whole library, this palette from which you can choose. And then the program is trying to create something pretty musical for you to practice. It's not trying to be an auto composer. I mean, it kind of sort of is an auto composer, but its intention is to generate something that is pleasing to hear, but you're practicing it, and then you can get assessed on that right away through the practice tool that we offer.
Is this AI based?
It is not AI based. I mean, what is AI? In all seriousness,
Yeah.
no. In all seriousness,
Yeah.
it's an engine that generates music. It's taking all of these inputs, and then it's creating new music based on some randomization.
Right. Okay. Well, so I mean, I get my question would be if there was some sort of machine learning going on where somebody would put these in, and there was some way to say, okay, maybe this wasn't as musical as we had hoped for, and this was good, this was not, and then the sight reading tool could then take that and learn from itself, learn what it composed, get graded, so to speak. So
I mean, it sounds like a great feature. Let's put it on the feature request list. No, in all seriousness, it is not though. It is because one thing I've always loved pondering about developing software for humans and the needs they have is finding each side of the scale, the balance of make it easy and give you the power and control. And so what we do is we try to let you create that sight reading material as quickly as possible, but then also, oh, wait a minute, I want something that's not 13 measures anymore, right? And so, yeah, it's probably easy, not easy, probably could train it through AI and whatnot, but it's just not something that we've invested in at this point.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, look, as a layman, I mean, I would be the last person to be able to speak intelligently or artificially intelligently about these things.
Yes.
But maybe I will get an AI assistant that can do that for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but no, but I think it is a fair question, only in the sense that at the very least I would imagine that this is a tool that, because it is web based, you will be able to always update it and refine your algorithms.
Yeah, I think the team deployed a couple times this week already.
Yeah, so
last week. Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, this is not something that's going to be out there and say, okay, that's it, because at the end of the day, if you put the same inputs into the sight reading tool, maybe you're going to get the same outputs eventually. So anyway, but that's cool, and I think it really speaks to your strength, both as the company and also your personal experience. Now, you've been with MakeMusic for 10 years, and I bring this up because often we think of these companies as kind of these vast behemoths that are out there doing something faceless, nameless, and that's always been one of my pleasures and goals with Scoring-Notes, is to put the human element to it. And you've been with MakeMusic for a decade. You started out as an automated test engineer, writing tests for the Finale user interface. Yeah, and now you have this responsibility for all of those things that you just mentioned, product development. So what's it like being in charge of all that? And maybe I heard it in the side. I was going to ask if you miss writing those automated tests, but maybe that answer is self-explanatory.
That's a great question. No, I was very lucky and fortunate to be able to start with MakeMusic and have the position that I had as an automated test engineer. I think it was great to be able to find a position where I had Finale knowledge, music knowledge, and technical knowledge, and to put those things together for the sake of helping. For me, doing an automated testing, it was how do we raise issues, how do we raise defects that are happening unexpectedly in the software as a result of engineering changes as quickly as possible, because each step in the process later, it's orders of magnitudes more expensive, and it takes away from delivering more to customers, right? And so for me, I found tremendous satisfaction in having that role. It's interesting, right? Because I think we all kind of yearn for growth, right, over time. And what's happened with me is I've just had the opportunity to broaden scope. And along with that, become far less technical. I have forgotten so much at this point. But I think that, I love having the vantage point of this breadth at this point. Yeah. Because back to this point of people who come to create music, practice music, whatever it is in their journey, I can really see all those different points of view and in all the different things that we offer to, as you said, human beings who are creating music.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, they are all related, and it is true. And I think it's really good to hear that perspective, and that's something that I don't think I really fully comprehended before. You mentioned it, where the cost of fixing the problem much later is a lot greater than fixing the problem early on before it metastasizes, and a lot of people experience it, and then maybe you have built upon that feature and didn't resolve that issue, and then so on and so forth, on it goes. Yep. So that's a very important part of the process, and I think it's good, even though maybe, like you said, that day-to-day technical knowledge, maybe knowing how to code something a certain way or whatever, may have evaporated, but the concept is still very much there. I think that's something that will always stick with you in wherever you end up taking your career, and with MakeMusic or otherwise. Like, that is just a fundamental thing that I think is very important. So Agreed. It's great. Yeah, it's great to hear that. So as I alluded to when we just started talking a moment ago, we saw each other actually in Colorado at the offices over the summer, and that was great fun.
It was fun.
Yeah, and I said the last time that we saw each other in a public setting, though, was at NAMM 4 years ago, and so 4 years is a long time. 10 years is a lifetime. The amount of time that you've been with the company, we've seen a lot of changes in the industry in that time. And so, obviously, a big one we covered on Scoring Notes was the acquisition of Hal Leonard by Muse Group, which, at least in my analysis, I found that to be somewhat comparable to the business that MakeMusic is pursuing, certainly with respect to both having the publishing element and the content aspect to it with the digital tools. Then I was kind of looking back to the conversation that you and I had 4 years ago, and you said that one thing that you, meaning MakeMusic, is looking at, and Alfred is looking at as a set of companies, is that Alfred is the biggest music education publisher in the world, as you just said a moment ago. And our offering, I'm quoting you here, our offering of software and how we can find ways to integrate those things. So obviously that's been borne out in the last 4 years. So I want to ask you, being right in the thick of it, what is your opinion of what some of the most notable changes have been, and how do they influence MakeMusic's business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think that the Hal Muse part you're talking about, it is a microcosm of, that's a large microcosm, but it's a microcosm of what I think's been happening in the music industry, which is consolidation. Yeah. Right. And consolidation is interesting because you have a lot more power and influence centralized with fewer players. And I mean, right, we know StaffPad and Audacity and so on. And for us, we have, our Alfred and MakeMusic side of things. And I think what consolidation does is it shows us as businesses how much we have to achieve. We have to do a lot more, sometimes with just as much, right? And that's not a user's problem. They shouldn't have to worry about that. But those are the challenges that we have to face, is we are in all of these different spaces at once, and we have to do a good job in all of these different spaces at once. And that's a significant challenge. Specifically around the Alfred MakeMusic side of things, I think 4 years ago, it's interesting to always hear myself quoted. I love that. But 4 years ago, we were in a different place than we are now. We've launched something called MakeMusic Publications, which didn't exist before, and that's with Brian Balmages, who for your listeners, they may
big band composer,
music education advocate, and they are doing exactly what we have strived to do, which is release music with a diverse set of composers, and it is print and digital, right? And it's a great success for musicians, I think. So as long as this consolidation happens with us and with others around us, as long as we are remembering that we're trying to do this for people and we're keeping that in mind, hopefully that guides the decision making that we all go through, right? I guess that's about all I would really have to say.
Yeah. Well, look, I think that's very accurate, because you're talking both about challenges, but you're also talking about opportunities, and the way you navigate those things is really important. And the opportunity is to be able to reach even more customers, more students, because we are talking a lot about the education market here. That's probably where the biggest potential is in terms of where you've positioned your products. And I want to hammer home one of the examples that maybe hasn't occurred for some of our readers or listeners to make that leap. But you're talking about still in a lot of the schools where they may not have all of the abilities or resources to access some of those digital tools. They are still obviously playing music from print publications that are fairly affordable, and they can be used over and over again. And of course, they're getting a new crop of students every year so that they can keep using it. But then the idea, and rather than having me kind of explain the whole idea, but the way I understand it is that you have that music. You might have purchased that music from a retailer. It doesn't have to be from Alfred necessarily. Certainly. It could be any, from your local music shop or third-party distributor. But then they say, maybe I don't know how you do it exactly. If there's a QR code or just a link to the website or something that's in there that says, okay, this is also available in MakeMusic Cloud, and here are the interactive tools. And they may not have been a customer to that point of MakeMusic Cloud, but they are in need of a way to not just have the opportunity to have that music be practiced in their lesson time or in the band rehearsal once a day or once every other day or whatever it is, but to have the assessment tool, the students come home on whatever device that they have, because it's web-based, and have the assessment, be able to practice, get feedback on that assessment. And there's a whole other, we mentioned some of the more musical tools, so to speak, but there's a whole classroom suite where you can, deal with the grading element and all of that. So that's as far as I want to take it with my layman's understanding. You're the expert here. So
no, you're right. I mean, again, it comes back to which seat is each person in. We've got things for a classroom teacher with a great book and all kinds of teaching tools. You have the ability to find new music if you're a student or a hobbyist or a musician, right? You can take the feedback, real-time feedback, or not take the real-time feedback. It's up to you, right? For many of us, we probably don't need real-time feedback at this point, but that's okay. You have all those different pieces in play. I think what's exciting, honestly, when you think specifically about the education market and NAMM right now, is putting such a great push to really have the NAMM educational stuff going, right? There's lots of education stuff going here right now. Is teachers are doing a great job teaching in the classroom. Speaking of what I said before, do more with less or do more with just as much, right? They are challenged as they've ever been. They are doing that with the kids to a high level in the classroom. And then once they leave the classroom, we're talking about ways we can help augment what that experience is, right? I probably said something similar 4 years ago. I mean, is there anything more inspiring? Well, I shouldn't ask you a rhetorical question. I should just say for myself, for me, there is not much more inspiring than thinking about how you're influencing the next generation of musicians and whatever they choose to do with music, right? And as they go in, they're going to have to probably do a lot of different things if they want to be professionals, but helping inspire that's what we're trying to do. And so we can augment what's happening outside of the classroom with this set of technology. Maybe I didn't want to practice what my teacher gave me this week, but I have access to 75,000 other pieces of music.
That's never ever happened in the history
right?
music education. But to bring it back to a technical level, it's funny. As you talk about the education element, as we were talking, a notification just popped up on my phone about an education seminar at NAMM here. So it's very, very present here. But the technical element is this, that when you're a student or even a professional, everybody deals with this when they're performers. There's the music, but there's the visual representation of the music. And something that is really key, I think, is that the student will see the same thing that they might see on the stand in paper format that they would see in their practice routine, and it's not so disorienting. And that's, I think, the benefit that you have, MakeMusic has, on both sides of the coin. So speaking of the engraving and the layout of music and all that, we have Finale.
We do.
Yeah, we do. It's still as powerful as ever, very useful. It's so powerful, in fact, that it has to be conquered by the user.
Conquering Finale. Yes, it does. Thank you, Jason Lafredo.
Our good friend Jason Lafredo, Conquering Finale. If you don't know that series of tutorials, you need to conquer those, because he's just done a great job of explaining it. He's a user, and he took it upon himself to make this series of videos.
And actually, it's amazing, because over time, the evolution of how we respond to someone who comes to the booth at a trade show like NAMM, when they say, what book should I buy for Finale? Go to YouTube and subscribe to Conquering Finale. That is literally the answer a lot of the time. And for some folks, it's a little jarring, because they're thinking, well, I want a book. And for others, they're like, okay, cool, interesting. It's like, it's a fantastic resource.
He's done amazing work with it. It was something that I don't know if he had the idea to do it before the pandemic, but I think it was born out of the fact that we were all kind of sitting at home and what are we going to do? And it coincided with kind of a period of stability with Finale, where he could kind of do a deep dive, and there wasn't a whole lot of changes from update to update, that they're still relevant. Like they're there for people to learn about. So where does Finale fit in everything that we just discussed, and what's the future of it?
So Finale, my beloved Finale, right? Absolutely. We've been working on it for 10 years since I got to make music. What we do is we're always evaluating, back to this point of we have all these different products.
Yeah.
Where are we spending the energies on which product and to what degree, right? And so what you saw with this last update we had in sorry, I forgot what year it was for a second. In 2023, we made this decision that, okay, here's the philosophy we're going to embark on with Finale for this second half of 2023, which was macOS Sonoma.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to call it right now a love letter to our longtime users, which was bug fixes that were really some of the frictions that we see a lot of our support cases, right? And it's interesting to me, right? We have so many different opinions about Finale and so many different kind of ways people use Finale. I mean, I believe the first line of code was written in 1984.
It's incredible.
I think we're on the 40-year anniversary of the first line of code.
Mm-hmm.
So it's amazing and perhaps not surprising how many different uses it serves, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to get at here, winding around, sorry, is that essentially we have all these different workflows and all these different users, and there are so many different pebbles in their shoes. If that makes sense, right?
It does. Yeah.
And it's very it's a great challenge to take on, to say, okay, how do I choose the right pebble, to can be the most helpful to the customer base.
Yeah.
And I don't mean me personally, I mean, how do we, as a company. And so we really tried to be mindful of choosing some really significantly impactful defects that we could fix and make sure that Mac OS is still working okay with Finale. And that's kind of what we were at. And we just continue to evaluate that philosophy. That's how we do it.
Yeah. It's interesting. You're talking about that first line of code being written 40 years ago. Would that have been by Phil Farrand?
Probably. I would assume that was it. Yes.
Yeah, right.
I haven't seen it myself. I don't remember, but it was right. Somebody said 84.
Okay. Hello world. Hello music.
Yes, exactly.
No, I mean, and there's a video that is out there where he talks about how he developed, the one that I'm talking about, those early days and our predecessors in the industry going into classrooms and showing these things. It's fascinating, the history of these products, and people have been at it a very long time. But right out of the gate, Finale, it has always been powerful in that way. Like it always tried to do a lot. Given whatever resources were available to it at the time. Very early on, I think, really, Finale kind of set the course in motion for what the expectation of what music notation software should and could be. And that continues to this day. And I'm talking about not just music notation, I'm talking about MIDI. I mean, from the very early days, it had MIDI, had very complicated and complex but powerful MIDI support and playback and recording and all of these things that were revolutionary at the time. And if it were not for Finale, I mean, maybe somebody would have done it eventually, but that kind of set the course in motion. I think it is a testament to the trajectory of the company and where it's gone over the years. And I guess, so one follow-up on that, if I may, would be, how do you prioritize those things that you're seeing? Because there are new trends in the industry, and then there are those pebbles, those user requests. What do you see? How do you balance those two?
Yeah, that's a great question. My mind's going.
Well, I was going to say, like, there was one, I don't know if you would call it a trend, but there was one, for instance, like Smoofle support. That was a big change in Finale.
Yeah. I was saying, as you were asking the question, I mean, my mind kind of went to like 3 totally different ways to answer it, right? I think that's almost a symptom of exactly what we're talking about. Right. So I would say, I'm kind of going off the cuff here, but the real obvious things are, first of all, looking at user feedback, right? Yeah. And things like this. And then when we start to look at like what's good for the industry, right? That's where I think something like Smoofle is a thing to prioritize. What's good for kind of something forward-looking? That's where you talk about this sharing feature. You know, maybe the majority of Finale users aren't using the sharing feature, but having the sharing feature there over time, and as the demands for instantaneous sharing of music continue to be higher and higher, you see, oh, that's a really nice thing to have prioritized, right, for maybe midterm or long term. Right. And then you're also talking about just kind of like a publisher persona. Oh man, I was just talking to a publisher this morning who was, interestingly enough, raving about the MIDI handling of Finale. No kidding.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, we have the publisher who the standard is so high, right, for what they need to produce, and we have our own Alfred. They're our own customers, right?
Yep.
So like that voice has to come in as well, and it really comes down to what are we kind of navigating and focusing on in any given year in time, I would say, right? So maybe it's a great time to say, Smoofle, we've hit the tipping point. We're going with Smoofle, or we need to balance that with something a little more forward-looking, like sharing, or we need to do the pebbles in the shoe, right?
Yeah.
I can't give you an exact answer because there's so much in play, though.
There's so much. It always changes. The MIDI, it's actually interesting you mentioned MIDI because something that Sibelius is previewing here at NAMM is MIDI copying, pasting between, they're marketing, obviously, Sibelius and Pro Tools and within the Avid ecosystem, but I just had a conversation with Sam Butler. This will be totally open to any software that supports MIDI copy and paste to the clipboard. And the only one that I know of right now, at least, that supports that is Finale. Has for a long time through the MIDI menu, import and export to MIDI clipboard. And so presumably, if and when Sibelius and Pro Tools support this, that will be another. Just Finale will have already had that feature that if you use, say, you're a Finale user, but you also use Pro Tools, or vice versa, or you use both Finale and Sibelius, and we're talking about MIDI data, so obviously a lot is going to be lost there. But if you're using these in the composing process, you can copy and paste between these two programs. I think for the first time directly using just the clipboard, something other than like just plain text, basically. Sure. And that's the type of thing, and I think a lot of users have asked for that for a long time in some way, shape, or form. The way they use digital audio workstations, the way they use music notation software, and it'll be cool to see where that goes.
Absolutely.
And how the software supports that. Yeah.
And I mean, MIDI 2.0, right? I mean, I was at a session about it yesterday, and we've been talking about it for many, many years. But there's so many exciting features in MIDI 2.0 if you want to sit down and read the several hundred-page spec. But it is, in all seriousness, it's so amazing.
Good
again,
bedtime reading there.
I know, right? Yeah. To watch the passion of people who are doing this for no pay, for the good of the industry. Back to one of those other factors we were just talking about, right? It's a fantastic concept. Yeah. This MIDI 2.0 really rolling out.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's funny you mentioned the Finale dating back 40 years. That the first line of code. I believe MIDI as a standard goes back 40 years. I think it was 1983. Yeah. So here we are. I mean, basically Finale and MIDI have grown up together.
They have grown up together. That's a great way to say it.
Yeah.
I was, I think, just walking into kindergarten, maybe. I don't know. That's
Well,
we all grew up together, I guess.
Yeah. I have a few more gray hairs since last time. You look the same.
I don't have any hairs. But that's okay.
That's one way to get around that. Good. Well, listen, obviously, you and I always enjoy getting together and talking to each other. Yeah. And, the final thing I wanted to just ask you, and I mean, I can hear the passion already, and you talked about this a little bit, but, every company has some sort of mission statement or value statement or set of values. And I was on MakeMusic's website. I said, looked and says, be deliberate, be impactful, be human. And that was interesting. And I was kind of reading about that a little bit. And we can certainly read about how MakeMusic embraces and defines those values. But I wanted to ask, what does that value statement mean in the work that you do?
Yeah, those are our three values, as you said, and they all work together. Be deliberate, be impactful, be human. It's a wonderful combination of things, and for me, it hits me right. It's the perfect place for me to be. Okay, I don't know how else to say it. Yeah. Be deliberate. Yeah. What is it you want to do? The process matters, right? Yeah. It's not just the results; it's the process, and that doesn't always yield a good result. Or it doesn't always look good, and you have to go back and get better at that. But be deliberate, really evaluate how you're doing things, right? And then being impactful. What are you doing that actually matters? What are you doing that's for the good of others? If you do one of those too much, one or the other too much, it doesn't work. If you're too deliberate, you are never impactful.
Right.
And if you're focused, bingo. And if you're only focused on just being impactful immediately, you probably could jump into things so fast that you mess it up.
Right.
And I love the combination of those two things. And I mean, I try to apply that to whatever I do.
Yeah.
And then to me, be human is kind of the bedrock of all of that. You know, you're working with other people. You're doing things for other people. People are consuming what you do, and you want to do consuming what you work on, and you want to handle that with compassion and awareness. And you know, customers are frustrated sometimes, and it's understandable because they rely on what you do.
Mm-hmm.
They rely on what we create.
Yeah.
You know, and you're in that situation too.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What do those values mean to you? Do they speak to you?
No, they do. And it's funny because, you know, when you talked about being deliberate and impactful and trying to hold those two together, it is the opposite, I think, of what we hear a lot in the tech world, which is to move fast and break things. And you know, it's not really a philosophy that's something that personally speaks to me. Like the deliberate and human, the deliberate and impactful combination is much more where I like to see things go, because at the end of the day, you can still move fast and be deliberate. These two are not mutually exclusive.
No, they're not.
Yeah. And, you know, and then the human element, well, of course, I've already spoken to that, where it's one of the great pleasures that I have being in this position to bring this to our listener and reader audience, is that there are a whole lot of people, good, well-intentioned people that are behind the products that we use. I've often said that we're more, don't take this the wrong way, but we're more intimate with the software than we are with our loved ones, because of the amount of time that we spend, and it is really in many cases essential to our livelihoods. And what is more human than having a livelihood and being able to provide for yourself and others? So not to get all like so woo-woo about this, but
no, I love getting woo-woo about it. I mean, you know,
but it is like this. These are the things that affect our lives. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so yeah, that's what that means to me, and I know it speaks to you as well. And I really feel like it's a great privilege to be able to talk to you and your colleagues here, getting together. And I know there are many other companies here, and you all compete, but it's also very collaborative.
It is.
And we had a very nice gathering and got a lot of free-flowing ideas and consumables around the table. Consumable, not anything illegal, folks, but it was a lot of fun, and I hope that will continue in the future, and you will continue to embrace those values in your work and also MakeMusic's work as we go forward. And
thank you.
Yeah, and we'll be talking hopefully we'll talk at this time again next year and hear about all the new and wonderful things that you've accomplished.
Yeah, sounds good. And hopefully that our customers have accomplished, right?
Exactly. Yeah. At the end of the day, I think those values do speak to music itself, and they align perfectly with the end goal here, which is to make music. So
full circle.
It's full circle. Jason Wick of MakeMusic, thanks so much. I hope you have a great rest of the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure. Yep.